pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our community is saddened by yet another loss. Libby Abramson, wife of Dr. Harry Abramson, left us after a fantastic life of 97 years. She was a founding member of Temple Shalom. She and Harry created many projects and programs at the hospital. She was a volunteer at the library. She was a swim instructor with special needs kids, and that's how I first met her back in the early 70s. Just a great lady, and she will be missed. Libby Abrams. Thank you. One set of minutes from September 7th. Can I have a motion? Second.
Council members Graham O'Brady.
Yes.
Jane Cavuta.
Yes.
Bob Mitchell.
Yes.
Roger Broom.
Yes.
Fred Weed.
Yes.
We have one departmental report from St. Hubers. Committee reports. We'll start to my left, Councilman Green.
I have nothing to see.
Okay, Councilman Gray.
Not yet. Let me think. I
Yes.
had something.
Okay, no, that's
It was
fine.
a long day.
Councilman Miller.
There's no following that, what to say. Okay, the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority is offering grants for fiscal year 2022. Together North Jersey Vibrant Places Program, which is a local technical assistance program. This program provides technical support for a range of creative place-making projects that enable future place-based investment, complementing other local economic development. Through the efforts of Pat Weston and the Fire Department's Maintenance Department, the antique 1942 fire engine 5, drained of fluids, removed from the east end bay, transported to a remote facility, and allowed to dry out. It was started and the engine runs. There is more cleanup work remains to be done before it's restored to its historic position in Somerville. Most of the cars that washed into Peters Brook in the storm and into the park have been removed. They first had to be documented for insurance. Parks are being cleaned up by scouts and other volunteers. Damage to Borough buildings is still being assessed by our insurance adjusters. And both Borough Hall and the Fire Museum will be open for weekend journey on October 9th and 10th. Part of the program will be outdoors. People who enter Borough Hall should follow the COVID protocol and wear a mask. That's all I have.
Hey, Mr. Blue.
No report tonight, Your Honor.
Dr. Gray.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Your Honor. As you all know from many, many years of experience, we're starting our 2022 budget cycle pretty soon. We're going to start most likely in October to plan for what we're going to do next year. So with your department heads, it's good for them to put together some lists of capital items that may be necessary. Certainly in light of the flood, whatever we need to look at, that's important. I'll coordinate with Kevin on that with the insurance. We have to look at the operating, particularly what we were going to do with personnel. We have some positions open, so we're going to have to take a look at what that is going to entail as far as funding for next year. So it's starting early, as it should, and it's going to be a little more difficult this year, I suspect, because of some of the things that have happened recently. So keep your nose to the grindstone, and let's see if we can pull together a budget that is going to have fewer surprises. The last 2 years we've had COVID, now we have the flood, so hopefully things don't come in threes, and next year should be hopefully better.
There's a lot of moving parts in the budget, and you have to start early because we want to be introducing by March. It's not that far away.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just with regards to DPW, each vehicle is going through a service check currently. We have 3 used in November to pick up leaves. It's that time of season already. During the month of October, leaves will be placed in paper bags, to be either brought to DPW or placed in the paper bags on the curb. In regards to some of our parks, we are, I'll report on behalf of Councilman Pitts, going to be here. We are currently evaluating our parks with the insurance companies, especially there was a lot of fence damages to our parks. And I just have to thank, on behalf of the entire borough, all the employees and volunteers who helped clean up some of these parks. And the borough is working with a tree service company to clean the greenway and remove any debris from that area. And I'd just like to remind everyone, as we clean out the storm-related damaged bulk items, the hauler's only authorized to pick the storm-related damaged items out. So let's make sure not to take advantage of that and not put out something that's been sitting in that kitchen for a long time. That's all I have.
Most of what I was going to comment on has been covered in the subcommittees. We've had some questions about the status of some of the residential apartment buildings, and so it's a mixed bag of reports. We have a meeting scheduled for one of the major property owners coming up this week, so I'll have more direction on what his intention is after we have that discussion. The Brookside Avenue apartments, on both the north and south side, my understanding that the electricity's been restored and people are allowed to return to those units. The ones on East Cliff Street, of course, have been abandoned, and there's cleanup work going on, and as I mentioned, we're meeting with the property owner in the next few days to get an idea of what he would like to do in terms of what his treatment of the site will be going forward. 150 South Ridge has 4 building units, and they are in various stages of being able to come back online. It looks like right now that one of the 4 buildings may not be able to come back, but right now, Kevin, about half of the units, I guess, are back in occupancy, and then we're working to bring those buildings back to power and to safety. So they get inspected, they get their CO, and then people can return. 152 South Bridge Street, that's the furthest south property. As you get closer to 206, the owners have not come in for any permits yet. Okay?
Correct.
All right, so we have no, we try to have discussions with that owner, but as of now, we have no official application to review and no permits to issue. So, Kevin, I think we should, again, try to contact them for an idea of where they want to go. In terms of your own property, the FEMA site in Manville is open. It's on North 8th Avenue. I don't recollect the exact street address, but it's a firehouse on North 8th, and it's going to be there for a while. I believe the hours are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday to Friday, and they have some hours on the weekend. Kevin, I think we posted that on our site.
That's correct. Yeah.
All right, so I was there the other day, and FEMA people, of course, are knowledgeable and helpful, and a few people I chatted with on their way out were happy that FEMA's presence was there. You must, of course, register with your insurance company first, and that's a given. So please register with your insurance company. But we recommend if you have not done so yet, you can go online with FEMA or go to their site themselves. If you're not comfortable with the internet and don't have access, you can go and have a personal interview. It's secure, it's private, and it's professionally done. So please make sure you register with FEMA. They will be your conduit for any kind of federal information. And that's all I have for now. Kevin, we have our discussion tonight that we tabled the last time?
Members of the Environmental Commission are here. I don't know if they want to touch base on it or not.
Well,
Okay.
since they're here, I think we should. So we, at our last meeting, tabled a discussion about a community garden concept. And with that, I will allow You have one spokesperson or a collective group too?
You too.
So why not introduce yourself and let us know what your plans are and what we can do to help.
Good evening.
My name is Rebecca Wright-Garofalo, and I'm a member of the green team on the environmental committee, and we have been working on we would like to create a community garden. Excuse me, we're looking at the location behind Firehouse and Number 1 on 712 Main Street. Since the storm happened, our plans have kind of become a lot more fluid, so
The dates, I think you managed some paperwork in front of you, the dates may have, are in phases at this point.
Name and address for the record.
Yeah, my name is Jeff Lamborn, 32 Lisa Terrace.
Thank you, Jim.
excuse me, 14 Nagle Drive. So we were hoping that the first year would be more of a pilot program. It would be run strictly by the green team to get things going along. We would like to use about a 1,400 square foot area behind the firehouse. Half of it would be on the macadam, half of it would be on the grass. And if we can get it successfully up and running in the future, we would hope that we can maybe expand. After the first year, then we would start offering to community members. We're hoping that within that first year of the pilot program, we can really get the word spread, maybe have some workshops and events take place that the following year people will be more eager and it will be more aware, and will be more excited to join, to become a member.
In a nutshell, could you just educate all of us on what exactly a community garden is?
It will be an area where members of the community can go to grow their own fruits and vegetables. There will be a specific number of plots available for rental. Again, the first year will be more of that pilot program run by us to make sure that we can work all the kinks out to make sure that this can happen, that people will want to participate, that there is a need in the community for a garden. We think that with the amount of land that people have in their yard, that a lot of people will be interested in some accessible green space, especially with the apartments growing up, that it will be useful, beneficial thing for community members.
I think we could also donate, if need be, the fruits and vegetables, the flowers that are potentially grown. Just a nice site to have in town here, but also have them available for donation to the YMCA or the food bank in the area. Most of it, the community garden is less about the produce that comes out of it and more about the engagement and the process of growing plants and vegetables and other items. So giving people a space to do that, I think is something that would be really beneficial and a nice outlet for people to go to and spend time using their hands gardening and such.
And just again, orient us exactly if I'm standing in the old Pizza Hut parking lot, I'm looking at the firehouse to the left, the pickleball courts to the right. Orient me as to exactly where this tract of land would be.
Sure. You may have, can we bring this forward?
Sure.
Thank you.
This is not important.
I have a photo of, it was hard to see, but the area would just be about 10 feet of the grass and about a handicap space worth of the, on the macadam. That would be the area that we are.
So when you're looking at the firehouse from the old pizza place, pickleball courts, tennis ball courts would be on your right. It'll be the majority of the space between. There'll be space enough for walkways between access to a light pole that's there, as well as closer to the firehouse. You won't be blocking access from the parking lot that's there to go around the firehouse and the space to run through.
If you flip open those papers, we have a design layout where there are the dimensions are laid out, so there will be accessibility to the firehouse, accessible for the people to access the light, the pole. So we try to map it out in a way that we won't interfere with anything that's there now.
All the beds are proposed to be raised at various heights. The first half that's on the macadam is intended to be eventually, or if not initially, wheelchair accessible for height and ability space between, as well as, and then the back portion would be, I think you have it set at various bed heights and sizes.
Yes. Still raised, but just lower to the ground.
Yeah. And we've gone through the construction of what it would take to get to that point. We do come asking as well for assistance with funding, if possible, for the fencing, as well as lumber to build, soil and mulch, which may be something that DPW can help.
Water.
And water does come from, the intention is to get that water, that's all important, to get that from the firehouse as well. So essentially attach to a spigot on the exterior of the firehouse, or have a hard line plumbed into the middle of the community garden that could be used to dispense water.
So just so you're aware, I've worked with Rebecca and Jeff on items for the last, I don't know, it's gotta be 6 months. Obviously, we never planned a storm to come in there. So we kind of looked at it, and, you know, through their volunteer efforts, we talked about spaces. Now, engine company, obviously, we're building a new firehouse, so that building will eventually become, you know, I wouldn't say surplus, but it'll be inventory to the municipality. The idea was to kind of create with the pickleball courts, and because with the fire company down there, there's a lot of life there. You kind of lose some of that life with some storage facility on the second floor. So the bottom floor would actually, you know, while it still certainly would be subject to flooding and all sorts of other issues, it becomes available space. So the idea was to stick the community garden behind there, because the community gardens, I've been through this before, it really has to be kind of a secured area. You know, they generally, you know, in today's world, they don't put it into the ground. It's usually elevated planting beds, like Jeff and Rebecca said. And you know, they came up with some real nice designs and some ideas on it. It's, you know, it's not blocked by the building most of the time. It's got an area, obviously, with sun. It is an ideal location if you were putting a community garden anywhere. And it'll definitely add life to the area when the fire department's not there anymore. Now, I did talk to the fire department. They have no issue, provided that we don't cause a problem for them while they're there. Now, if you look where Pat Weston is, where his office is, it's really between Pat Weston and the pickleball courts. And it kind of starts creating, you know, a green space, something, you know, where community members can go, and they spelled that out very well. We did, at one point, they did tie it into an Eagle Scout project, but obviously the flood has kind of caused that to pivot, because the Eagle Scout has different timelines. So they may have to pivot to do something else. But regardless of this is regardless of the Eagle Scout, what happened was we've met a couple times on it and chatted about it. You know, and I think that from our perspective, from the staff's perspective, it's kind of an ideal location. And we treat it the way we have it treated now. It would be fenced off. You know, it's not fenced off now, it'd be fenced off. It would have the ability for not only for, you know, members of the public, but for school kids and things like that. Other things, you know, Richie's here, I know he's always had the kids coming to the museum, things like that, where now other kids can get involved with the landscaping of that. I don't know, I certainly think, and not that I'm here to support them, but I want to let you know that this is not something they're just bringing to the borough's attention today. You know, I provided you some background information 2 meetings ago when it was supposed to happen, so you had an idea, but it's certainly, you know, there are certainly grants out there, as well as, I know when they said financial support, everybody's like, oh, right, but that's, when a financial support means the ability to get the financial support. You know, we have that ability. The DEP has a community garden program. They're doing a big project in Trenton right now. I've been through them in Jersey City, and it's ideal. It's a nice situation to kind of, certainly, and really with the flood, it only becomes more ideal to use that location, to be honest with you, because it'll bring people back into an area that has suffered some significant damages.
One thing I'm thinking about, Somerset County has a rain barrel program. It's primarily designed for residential properties. We have quite a number of people participating in that here. It might be something you'd like to add on.
Absolutely.
So we won't need, you know, water from a hose, we get rain, we have a barrel.
The building itself would be, and sorry to interrupt, the building itself I think would be an ideal location to have a rainwater collection system.
You could incorporate a rain garden type of concept like we have over at Carroll Pager as well. There's an opportunity to treat rainwater as a friend.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's a resolution on the agenda today, I believe. No, was it tabled last time? I don't recall off the top of
We
my head.
we did see it on the agenda today.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we pulled it last time before, that's right. I wasn't able to. It's on the regular agenda?
Yeah, 268, second one.
And you can take that at that point, I was just pointing it out.
Well, we can do it now. Since they're here, that's fine.
Is
So,
that address on 170
East Main, that's the edges of the fire.
That's firehouse.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion for 210920268.
Second.
Council members Granville Brady,
Yes?
Jane Cabuda,
Yes.
Tom Mitchell,
Yes.
Roger Vroom,
Yes.
Fred Weed.
Yes. Good luck.
Thank you. I'll keep you abreast.
Nick Zucchini.
Yeah.
Yeah, tomatoes in case you like some.
All right, we have several ordinances for introduction tonight. The first one is 2645-21-0920, authorizing the leasing of property known as Tax Block 73, Lot 16.02, located in the Gaston Avenue redevelopment area, to FDS Somerville, New Jersey LLC. Contract developer pursuant to the local redevelopment and housing law, NJSA 48:12A-1ET sections for the emergency services facility project. May I have a motion for introduction?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Council members Granville Brady,
Yes?
Jane Cabuda,
Yes.
Tom Mitchell,
Yes.
Roger Vroom,
Yes.
Fred Weed.
Yes, and that will be on for public hearing at
The October meeting,
October
the first October meeting.
3rd, I believe.
October 4th.
October 4th, 7 p.m. Okay. Our second ordinance for introduction, 2646-21-0920, authorizing the borough to enter into a build-to-suit lease for property known as Tax Block 73, Lot 16.02, located in the Gaston Avenue redevelopment area with FDS Somerville, New Jersey LLC, the contract redeveloper pursuant to the local redevelopment and housing law NJSA 48:12A-1ET SECU for the emergency services facility project. Motion for introduction.
So moved.
Second. Roll call.
Council members Granville Brady,
Yes?
Jane Cabuda,
Yes.
Tom Mitchell,
Yes.
Roger Vroom,
Yes.
Fred Weed.
Yes. And again, that hearing and adoption is scheduled for October 4th, 7 p.m. All right. Our third ordinance for introduction, 2647-21-0920, amending Chapter 149 entitled Stormwater System of the Somerville Borough Code by removing the existing Chapter 149 and replacing said chapter. Motion
So
for
moved.
introduction.
Second.
I would like-
Councilman, you wanted to make a brief
Yeah,
statement?
I would like to make a brief statement about this. We introduced this ordinance a few months ago with a number of enhancements in it that were recommended by Sustainable Jersey and supported by the Environmental Commission. It was introduced and it had to be approved by the DEP. The DEP took it and they didn't approve it, they didn't reject it, they just sat on it for a while. And we kind of forgot about it. So what we're doing here is we're reintroducing it bare bones, without the enhancements that were originally suggested, and hoping that they will pass it straight through. It's basically word for word the same they've been passing for other towns. Also, I just want to point out, many people might think that, oh, this had something to do with the floods, since it was stormwater. It does not. This would have had no effect on Ida, because in Ida, the ground became saturated. It doesn't matter how pervious or impervious your surface is, if the ground is fully saturated, it doesn't absorb anything at all. This is to handle more routine, small-scale flooding situations. by seeing that the rainwater is returned into the ground instead of washed off into the lake, into the brook and river.
Right. Roll call.
Council members Granville Brady,
Yes.
Jane Cavuta,
Yes.
Tom Mitchell,
Yes.
Roger Broom,
Yes.
Fred Weed.
Yes.
And again, hearing and adoption, October 4th, 7th. Thank you. All right, I need a motion to open to the public.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Council members Granville Brady,
Yes.
Jane Cavuta,
Yes.
Tom Mitchell,
Yes.
Roger Broom,
Yes.
Fred Weed.
Yes.
Public session is open. Come to the microphone, and we understand that on the playback on YouTube, public's having some difficulty hearing both us and the audience. So if you would try to, use your outside voice to some extent, so that we can be heard. Please keep your voice, right? Yeah. Please address your comments to myself.
Yes.
Name and address for the record.
My name is Larry Cleveland, I live 34 Grand Avenue. Good evening, everyone. I just had a couple of questions of clarification. Mr. Mitchell said that all the cars are out of the brook now? They're all
I
out?
said most of them are out.
So the ones that are not out, is there a plan to get them out sooner rather than later? Because we discussed it at the Environmental Commission last week, and these cars still have fuel, antifreeze, oil, and
They
they're
do not
just a kind of
appear,
nuisance.
they do not appear to be leaking at the moment.
Let's let Kevin answer that, because he was on the phone with DEP as early as today, about getting them out and what we need to do.
So there's two vehicles remaining in the brook now. Both the entities that own that vehicles, they've been notified. So what happened in the beginning was the insurance company was taking care of it. Obviously, the insurance company, not our insurance company, their insurance. The problem is they're overburdened. So we gave them a specific time to handle that. We did contract, I should say we contracted, we did receive quotes from a heavy equipment operator to remove it. A crane for the one. So what happened was, as of this morning, formal call from the county had advised me that their contractor was going to remove it. They solicited quotes as well. We actually use the same contractor. So I spoke to Dennis Manning, and that contractor, they're notifying the insurance company before they pull it. I'm expecting that it'll be removed this week. They will need a crane apparently for the one that's upside down, and the other one is relatively like a winch tower. But that,
We're making a move to get rid of it.
Yeah.
They're gonna try to do some-
no, sorry, yeah, that's correct. Well,
that
it's
also-
3 weeks tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
So there was, I also communicated with the DEP. The DEP is allowing us to remove it, and anything else that we remove, we have to file a permit. So we just have to take care of those physical vehicles. They have not required any sort of ballooning around it or anything like that. They said we could just pull it out under the flood hazard that was declared.
And on emergency basis, just do that.
That's correct, yep.
The same thing holds true with some of the fencing that was ripped down, Mercer Street Park, Carol Reader.
Oh, the regular park fencing?
Regular park fencing, because those are, I mean,
Yeah, so.
it's not like anybody's fixing those, they're not replacing.
Yeah, yeah.
So making it safe might be the prime directive.
Yeah, so the insurance company did receive are receiving quotes. They were out on Friday for the fencing, York fencing, Guardian fencing, and then there was another one that was providing quotes to the insurer. I have a meeting tomorrow from 10 to 12 with the insurer to go over exactly, their next steps. But they've asked us to close those parks that have the fencing down. We did tape them out today. So hopefully tomorrow we'll know their time frame. They understand that it's really not a price factor, it's how quick you can get it done. So we're hoping, one of the companies is very local, as long as they're not overburdened, they could probably do that fairly quickly. And they just want us to remove those hazards. Some of those fields, some of those courts are obviously have some issues as well.
Well,
And that would be the
paving
next,
is another issue.
yeah.
Making it safe is the most important thing. So if you guys got that in mind, then that's what I want to know about the
Yeah.
cars.
Yeah, the process of just like everybody's here, it's always slower than we want it to be. But, you know, the process is certainly, this is all I'm doing now. So this is all day. So it's the process of just making sure either the insurer in one case or the flood insurer is comfortable, you know, with the go. Once they're comfortable with the go, the contractors can get in. So unfortunately, you know, we obviously, you know, we have other items we're handling, but as far as the insurance, it is moving now very well. So over the next week, I think there's going to be a very large effort on that.
Thank you for that. And
Sure.
the third question I had was, in general, about the flooding that has happened, and with Bradford Valley Sewage Authority, I know they're building the new water treatment plant that's on Southside Avenue in Lozier. You know, it's actually in Bridgewater, but our park is there. Southside Park is actually in Bridgewater, but it's some of the own property. That got hit a couple of years ago, and through investigations and things they told us, it was because they were sealing manholes further up the road. They sealed manholes in Bridgewater, and we get the water and the sewage, and it ruins our park. So, okay, lost the park. That was 5 years ago. I don't know what the timetable is for this water treatment plant to get online, but I think that the sewage authority may want to review how is it that, again, we are at the end of the line, or Hillsborough is at the end of the line, Old Town and Manville. Manville gets into the grants, whatever, and they get happy. But it seems like we have a lot of extra stuff here, and this is the second time in 5 or 6 years, maybe they need to double check where these release valves are, because they shouldn't be release valving to Southside Park. That already happened once, that's how we lost the park the first time. We said the pool in that park, can't. That place is still a mess, literally, figuratively. So I just don't know if maybe get the sewage authority involved with checking what they're doing, because a lot of people got backups into their house, backward flow. Me too. So, just saying.
I never had you.
They're at, I've been living here 24 years. They're at problem. So, it's, you know, a heavy rain is one thing. This was, I understand, definitely. This was God territory, certainly. I get it, but
Kevin, have we got
there's gotta be something we should look at with.
any dialogue with the authority?
Yeah, I really couldn't speak intelligently to it. I'll reach out to them tomorrow as far as that. I mean, everything Larry said, I'm aware of. But as far as how that station could potentially help us in the long run, and as far as the relieving of that, I know the manholes you're speaking about. So I just need to have a conversation.
That was the intent of the expansion, was to create more capacity. But I don't know where they are in their timetable of construction. We're still under the administrative consent order, which we're making progress with, I understand. But until they're open, until they open their gates, you know, we need to find out from them where along the way, and did this set them back. And I have to think it at least, you know, stop things for a while. So let's give them a call and see where they are.
Sure.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Cleveland, thank you.
Thank you.
Frank McLeavy, 129 Barton Street. At the last council meeting, when I was here, I suggested that the council look into appointing a committee to determine what we did right and what we did wrong with the Hurricane Ida. I'm just wondering, where does that stand at this point in time?
Well, as of right now, we have an OEM meeting scheduled, I believe, next Monday. Our chair reached out to the members of the OEM to have a meeting and get in touch with Kevin on that. So once OEM has had that internal discussion, we'll see what our next steps will be in terms of having a debriefing for the entire council. And we'll keep you in the loop as to when that happens.
Thank you.
Good evening, Brian Gallagher, 7 Fairmont Avenue. A couple of things. One, again, I think a thank you is in order to the dozens of residents that have come out to help their neighbors in their cleanup. There's something really nice about that in, when half of your life's belongings are out on the curb and they're sitting there for weeks at a time, it's emotionally, it's very disturbing. And there's a whole lot of residents that stepped up. And I didn't hear it tonight, so I wanted to thank the residents for doing that. There was a lot of them out there, and they put in a lot of sweat equity over the past 2 weeks for mistakes that were made. So I want to thank them. I also want to thank Councilman Broom, who was out there doing that sweat equity. I saw him a number of days over the past 2 weekends doing that, so thank you. A couple of things. I filed a few OPRA requests, open public records requests, one of which was an inventory of the items that were lost down at the DPW garage. I understand, Kevin was right on it, I understand that's going to take some time to generate. I get that. Is there, and this would go to the DPW liaison through the mayor, but is there an inventory list available of items, not necessarily lost, but what is down at the garage and its property? I'm sure there is a list that exists.
I would have to defer to my DPW director. I personally don't have a list.
Does the liaison know if there's a list?
I could ask.
I would have to defer to Ronnie Hadley.
There's and I don't know how it's broken up, but we have asset inventory, which we do every year, but that's over 5,000 in value. And then obviously we have the insurance list that we insure, so they're not necessarily broken up to location.
Well, I think there's an ability to at least begin generating a list, and maybe it's a running list of items that have already been determined that have been down at the garage that have suffered in the flood. Maybe it's not lost because it hasn't been determined yet, but I think it's incumbent upon the council and the mayor to let the taxpayers know what was down there. I heard we've got 3 leaf blowers because leaf blower season's coming. There's a lot of other things other than leaf blower season. There's the general day-to-day maintenance, there's snow season coming, and there's a lot of vehicles and equipment that we don't have access to. I'd also ask from the DPW liaison standpoint, what is the plan right now for that equipment? Is there a plan? Has the DPW liaison met with the director to begin to identify what that plan is moving forward for the next 3 months, leading into winter? It's going to be extremely difficult to get vehicles because a lot of other municipalities have suffered losses. Rentals are going to become hard to come by because everybody else is buying for the same equipment. The costs are going to go up. So has the DPW liaison begun those discussions with the DPW director?
I'll start now. I'll ask Fred if you'd like to jump in. The first task at hand, the first public function is the leaf season. So we're taking steps now to make sure that we have not only the ability to pick up bags that people have bagged up and left at the curb, but we are planning to have the traditional bag system in place November 1st. It won't be available October 1st, but we're hoping to have it by November 1st with the option for the month of October to have the leaves picked up at the curb. And then, of course, the next obvious issue is going to be snow season. And Kevin's already started to reach out to take bids on snow. As you know, we sub some of our snow out anyway because in a big storm we don't have the capacity to do ourselves. So we have a supplemental snow removal. And we're thinking this year to get some bigger trucks and be ready to go with that bid. I don't know if you've had a chance to.
Yeah, that bid's out. It's normally a 4-truck bid or less. It went out for 6 trucks this time. So it'd be a 6-truck bid. And that's already out on the street. As far as the other stuff, we did sign a contract for a 3-month, a 60-day, a 2-month rental on a sewer jetback truck. And we've had some friendly partners. So we did take 2 vehicles from Somerville County off their auction line, and we took 2 vehicles from Borough Township. that are operating, and they have plows. And then there's a third of Mason dump. There are other municipalities that we've made offers to us, but we're not in a position to accept those offers yet, only because of personnel and timing. I don't want to be accepting stuff that just sits in our lot. But you know, the DPW director and I, you know, obviously, you know, we meet every day, more than once.
Well, from an administrative standpoint, but from a policy standpoint, as the liaison had these discussions.
I've been in constant communication with both Rodney and Kevin.
And what plans are you making with
I
them?
mean, right now, you know, vehicles, as I mentioned in my committee reports, are going for service check. You know, some of the older vehicles, the fluids are being drained, equipment being dried out, and new fluids can be placed in, evaluate, you know, see if they work. Some cases, some of the newer equipment, it's more electronic, or I'm trying to think, digital. It's more digital, so that might be more of a challenge. You know, especially, you know, you take a brand new car in to get service, you almost need an engineering degree. The old cars, you know, most people can just change things themselves. You know, that's a little bit more of a challenge, and more newer digital ones. And then, as Mayor Kevin mentioned, you know, we've been working with the county and some town, Burns Township and the county marketplace. I don't know if that answers your question.
I'll let the public decide that. There's a discussion point on the executive session tonight, which was emergency contracts. It's fairly broad. What was the nature of that discussion, and who was it regarding?
That was some supplemental work that we have to cover emergency appropriations because of the storm.
I don't know if that's specific enough. You can't be specific with executive session material without divulging what the nature of the discussion is. It's overly broad.
I would defer to the attorney on that.
Well, the discussion about the details of the contract itself are certainly subject to executive and rightfully withheld, but it's within your discretion. Right?
Understood, but not so much the entity.
I'm not sure I understand what you're asking.
Well, who was the nature of that discussion? Was there an entity?
The contracting entity?
Yes.
Well, one of the resolutions actually is on the agenda, so an update on the LMR disposal, because clearly the work that we're doing as part of the flood is, and you're familiar with this, we're trying to keep it separate from regular work, even if you have the same contractor, right? So LMR presents a challenge because they're under an emergency contract and they are our contractor. So the contract, really in executive session, I'm basically just updating and confirming as I move forward where some of these things may exceed the thresholds under the emergency requirements. So I mean, you know, when you say it's board, it's kind of a board discussion too. It's everything will be memorialized by a resolution as we get to that point, but it's really the governing body giving me the authorization in between the two time periods. If I see the need and the fit and necessary, similar to like lifting the cars and things like that, if they are not, you know, if they're not receiving the quotes, that I'm, you know, I'm given that level of authority to go ahead and proceed that way.
So it was only LMR with
I can also say that we didn't discuss in particular entities who were contracting. It was more of the general nature of the contracts and authority for Kevin to do so. I don't know if that answers your question.
Sort of.
This is the first I've heard of it online. It didn't come up in the executive session at all.
So just in closing, and I thank you for the time, in concert with what Mr. McAlevey had stated, I think an outside review of actions that were and were not taken, I think is very appropriate. And also, in terms of enabling the public to have information, I think it would be beneficial for the taxpayer to understand what all those expenses are. And in today's day and age, I think it's very simple to put information on the borough website which lists all of the storm expenses, all of the storm losses, everything that is storm related, so that the average taxpayer can understand what the impact of this storm is on each individual home.
Thank you.
Is that a yes or a no?
I anticipate we will have a full accounting when this is all done, but as you know, Brian, there's a lot of moving parts with this.
Oh, I realize that.
And we have to look at the loss, and then the insurance, and then the FEMA, and then the net. And it's my intention to make that all.
And I don't doubt you will, but I think having a running total is probably not a bad thing. You can put in there that you're applying for FEMA aid in the amount of X, which would offset Y. And let's keep people informed and not in the dark, because there's a tendency by government, not necessarily you, but there's a tendency by government, time tends to make people softer. And I don't know that people are that soft on this one. This was a tough one. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public who'd like to raise a hand?
Anyone? Hi. Good evening. My name is Candace Matthews. I'm at 392 William Street. I have two things I'd like to, one comment and one question. The first question, actually, I would like to talk about, we had a few issues in the past years with pedestrian deaths and accidents with jaywalking. It seems to be really predominant, especially on High Street and Veterans Memorial, and what are we doing other than signage that was up for a few months before it blew over to address the situation, because it is quite problematic. People dodging in and out of cars.
First on veterans. Back in the spring, Kevin, early summer, we met with DOT. We have a grant coming in for enhancements on vets. And that's going to go from, is it Bridge to what?
Bridge to Main. Bridge to Main. On veterans, on the bottom side, on the.
So there are
Does it
pedestrian.
go up Bridge?
No,
No.
from Bridge Street.
From Bridge
South
Street.
Bridge Street to the intersection of East Main and Vets. That entire section of Veterans Drive is going to be improved with, I guess, new crosswalks, some signage. That's state, I believe it's state. And we had an ability to see their proposal, make some suggestions to it, make some modifications to it. I don't know the timetable for that, but they are going to do some improvements also to the Hamilton Street intersection, because that was identified from years ago as one of the most dangerous intersections in the region.
Hamilton, Maine.
Hamilton and Vets.
Oh,
Yeah, Hamilton and Vets. There's a light now, but it was the subject of some discussion in terms of improvement. So there is a treatment that's going to happen on Bridge Street.
I mean, improving with crosswalks, I understand, I'm sorry to
No.
interrupt you, but improving with crosswalks, I understand. But what about a policing of it? Do we have an ordinance for jaywalking? I mean, if people start getting ticketed, they're gonna stop doing it. Because especially on High Street, behind the courthouse, there is a crosswalk on both lights, but people are too darn lazy because they cross from the courthouse into that parking lot. And that is where we've already had a fatality. And it happens every day, all day long. And it's really
The ordinance,
problematic.
I believe it's a state ordinance. I don't believe it's even a local ordinance for jaywalking. I think that's, Kevin, am I correct?
That's
with that?
correct.
It's a state law. Several years ago, Somerset County requested a mid-block crosswalk at that very location, which this council denied, because of the existence of the traffic light on the corner. And we determined that we should encourage people to use that crosswalk rather than create a ill-founded mid-block crosswalk. So, our police commissioner's not here tonight, but I'll pass the word on to the chief, that in addition to their other many duties, our police officers should be aware, and we can put out notices. Ridewise is very good, when working with us. They are proposing a traffic pedestrian treatment program, but not in the summer because our activity was low. Now that school's back in, I had discussions with Ridewise about coming in and doing another awareness campaign. We did one last year, but the activity was reduced by the pandemic, so it was really not as effective as it could have been.
Okay, thank you. My next is a comment, and I wrote it out, and I'm still feeling a little hot under the collar, so I'm going to just read my statement, if you may. It is with a heavy heart that I stand before all of you today. I have been a Somerville resident for 21 years. I love this community. I do not repeat hearsay, so I'm here to share what I have witnessed firsthand. As we are all already aware, this was a gross lack of preparedness prior to the storm on September 2nd. I recently watched Mayor Sullivan and Mr. Sluka on YouTube speak, saying this is a time to look forward, not backwards. Sadly, this is all we can do now. The storm may have been much worse than original predictions, dumping 10 inches of rain instead of the 4 to 5 predicted. But to not look back, to not prepare when we have in the past dealt with flooding from even the initial predicted amounts is negligent. So now, as always, the community came together in the aftermath. Some who lost everything and had nothing to give but their time. I took part in a community cleanup on Sunday, September 12th. I met a crew on South Richard Street, many of whom I have never met before. As we waited for the dumpster to be placed, Mr. Sullivan emerged from his home on South Richards. As I stood there holding my gloves, ready to get to work, Mr. Sullivan approached the driver of the truck, passing without any greeting. He introduced himself as the mayor of Somerville to the driver and proceeded to ask him where and when and for how long the dumpsters would be placed. However, Mr. Kraska had been updating the community for days via social media and organizing volunteers to meet at set locations to fill dumpsters in an effort to expedite the cleanup. After speaking with the driver, Mr. Sullivan returned to his home, never to be seen again, while more and more people arrived to clean his very own street and curb. Many people assisted with the effort, including an older gentleman with a cane, lifting what he could with his free hand to a waiting wheelbarrow for one of us to push to the dumpster. Some residents, for a second time, moving their lost belongings. I am so very proud to be a part of this community, and yet I was also so embarrassed and appalled by the utter lack of leadership and compassion. Being the mayor is more than just a title to be lobbed around and more than ribbon cutting and getting your photo in the paper. We need true compassion, concern, and leadership from all of our elected officials. We need more Jason Kraskas, and thank you for all that he and the many, many others did at this time and for these people. And in closing with that, I would just like to say, as I sat here and watched each of you, I was quite disappointed yet again with the body language that you presented while some people spoke. It's a shame.
Anyone else from the public? Yes, sir.
46 East Main Street, Grafton, Corolla. Sticking with the damage from the flood, if you guys or any parks or anywhere people congregate, kids play, have got affected by the flood waters. I have a power washing business. I've had it for 13 years. I will donate my time to get parks cleaned up or wherever people congregate, wherever the kids play. If you guys need any help on this.
Can we give information with the clerk and we'll
Sure.
put you on. All right, motion to close public.
Second.
Council members Granville Brady?
Yes.
Jane Kubota?
Yes.
Tom Mitchell?
Yes.
Randy Pitts? I'm sorry. Roger Vroom?
Yes.
Fred Weed?
Yes.
We're at our consent resolution part of the meeting. Is there anything that the council would like to discuss?
272, please.
Any more? All right, I'll read these in summary. 267, approving chapter 159 for emergency emigrant. 268, we did before, community garden. 269, authorizing payment for sheltering services with Somerset Hospitality Solutions as a result of tropical depression. 270, approve the shared service agreement for shared marketplace system between the county of Somerset and the borough of Somerville. 271, resignation of Noel Salviato, parking department, effective September 10. 273, waiving building permit fees for repair work generated by the storm. 274, waiving enforcement of parking fees, again, for the tickets issued during the storm. 275, amending resolution requiring approval of the Director of Division of Local Government Services due to Hurricane Ida. And 276, is authorization of an emergency contract with LMR for dumpsters for damaged boat pickup. Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Council members Granville Brady?
Yes.
Jane Cabuda?
Yes.
Tom Mitchell?
Yes.
Roger Vroom? Fred Weed?
Yes.
All right, 272, approving chapter 159 to the State of New Jersey Economic Development Authority hazardous discharge site remediation landfill groundwater. Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that what this is the grant that we are receiving for $482,000 for cleanup of the groundwater in the landfill area. That's all I have.
All right. Roll call.
Council members Granville Brady?
Yes.
Jane Cabuda?
Yes.
Tom Mitchell?
Yes.
Roger Vroom?
Yes.
Fred Weed?
Yes.
Bills and vouchers.
Okay, Your Honor, I move the payment of bills and vouchers in the amount of $1,076,828.23. That's my motion.
I'll second that.
Council members Granville Brady?
Yes.
Jane Cabuda?
Yes.
Tom Mitchell?
Yes.
Roger Vroom?
Yes.
Fred Weed?
Yes.
All right, before I call for adjournment, I'd just like to make a comment based on something that was raised during the public session. Comment was made that we're not thanking people enough for their efforts. I've heard many of my fellow council people, as well as myself, make mention on more than one occasion of the 12,000 neighbors that we all are to one another. It's not about getting credit. It's not about seeing and being seen, being photographed, doing this, helping there. Each person in their own heart knows what they've done. Whether they were actively involved in helping a neighbor, whether they made a quiet donation, whether they just said a prayer, if that's their want. I, as a mayor, appreciate everything that everyone in this town has done, from a scout to a preschool kid, to a college student, to a senior citizen. If I have to say it in public at every meeting, I will. I appreciate everything that we have done, not only during this situation, but in situations in the past. And I'm sure in situations to the future as well. The actions of this town speak for themselves. And if saying thank you just adds to our collective feeling of goodwill, then thank you. With that, I'll call for an adjournment.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
See you in 2 weeks.
Try not to.